Was he a holy man with powers beyond understanding, or a devil incarnate who cursed a dynasty? Madman Rasputin. Born a peasant in Siberia, he would rise to become the most feared and controversial figure in Imperial Russia. Some say he was a prophet, a healer who could touch the hemophiliac air and stop his bleeding with a single prayer. Others whisper he was a demon in human skin, seducing women, corrupting kings, and dragging the Romanovs toward a violent, bloody end. What is true? What is myth? And what is pure nightmare? Tonight, we unravel the dark, twisted story of Rasputin, the man who haunted Russia itself. The Russia Rasputin was born into was not the Russia most of us imagine from fairy tales. The early 1900s was chaotic, unstable, and steeped in superstition. The peasants lived in grinding poverty, while the nobility dined on luxury and plotted behind closed doors. The Orthodox Church held enormous power, but faith and fear were often intertwined. The country was on the brink, politically, socially, spiritually, and in that liminal space, people craved miracles. It was a nation where mystics and holy men would gain influence simply because ordinary people were desperate for signs that God still cared. And then there was Rasputin, a man who seemed to embody both the sacred and the profane, offering hope to the desperate while inspiring fear in those who understood his true nature. Grigori Rasputin was born in 1869 in Pokrovsky, a tiny Siberian village. The child of peasants, he grew up in a harsh world, familiar with cold, hunger, and the rhythm of life dictated by the land. But even as a boy, people claimed there was something unusual about him, a strange charisma and an intensity in his eyes, as if he could see straight into people's souls. By his early 20s, Rasputin had left home, wandering across Siberia, joining religious sects, and cultivating a reputation as a holy man. Followers claimed he had mystical powers. He could heal, he could predict, he could calm the troubled heart, but his methods were unconventional. Tales spread of ecstatic rituals involving self-flagellation, intense prayer, and indulgence. Some believed these acts purified him. Some thought they marked him as possessed. His legend was growing even before he set his foot in St. Petersburg. He was a man both feared and revered, a combination that would allow him to infiltrate the very heart of Russian power. Rasputin's life took a dramatic turn when he entered the court of Tsarina Alexandra. The Romanovs were desperate. Their son Alexei suffered from hemophilia, a condition that could make even minor injuries fatal. In Rasputin, Alexandra saw a man touched by God. Miraculously, when Rasputin prayed over Alexei, the boy's symptoms sometimes subsided. Whether this was fate, a coincidence, or something darker, it was enough to secure Rasputin's foothold in the palace. Soon Rasputin was no longer a visitor, he was a fixture. Alexandra trusted him implicitly, believing he alone could protect her son. But his closeness to the royal family fueled rumors and gossip. Whispers of improper intimacy, hypnotic influence, and scandalous behavior filled the corridors of the Winter Palace. By the time Rasputin became indispensable to the Tsarina, he was both revered and feared, adored by some, despised by almost everyone else. Rasputin's reputation outside the palace was darker, stranger, and more lurid than even the worst rumors suggested. Stories of excess, wild drinking, and hypnotic influence spread like wildfire. He was said to seduce women with a glance, manipulate men with a word, and bend the powerful to his will. Some claimed his piercing eyes were hypnotic, capable of controlling minds or at least twisting desires, making even the strongest men uneasy in his presence. There were whispers that he could sense secrets, expose sins, or provoke confessions with nothing more than a stare. People spoke of nocturnal parties and decadent rituals in which Rasputin's followers would gather, and sometimes engaging in behaviors that blurred the line between devotion and debauchery. Accounts suggest that Rasputin himself would move through these gatherings like a shadow, alternately blessing and intimidating those present. Some historians believe these rituals were part of a Siberian religious sect known as the Dynasty. Notorious for ecstatic practices and self-flagellation, practices designed to achieve spiritual purification through suffering and excess. The idea that Rasputin came from such a background only amplified his aura of danger in the eyes of Russian elite. To the nobles and clergy, he was the ultimate symbol of corruption, a man who infiltrated the sacred space of the monarchy and seemed untouchable. Reports circulated of him leaving parties late at night, drunkenly staggering through the streets, yet somehow emerging unharmed from incidents that would have ruined or even killed an ordinary man. His enemies claimed he was untouchable, protected by some supernatural force or dark magic. Even those who despised him admitted that his presence made people physically uncomfortable. A subtle, almost tangible dread seemed to cling to him as though the very air shifted in his proximity. Scandals only intensified after accounts of Rasputin's alleged lesions with members of the nobility and court became public. Women reportedly flocked to him for spiritual guidance, only to become embroiled in situations that scandalized society. Newspapers and pamphlets eager to stoke public outrage painted him as a depraved figure who corrupted not just individuals but the very moral fabric of the Russian Empire. The combination of his supposed mystical powers, his bizarre personal habits, and the absolute loyalty of the Tsarina made him a figure of fascination, horror, and obsession, a man who seemed to hover on the line between saint and monster. By the time rumors had reached the wider public, Rasputin had become more than a man. He had become a legend, an almost mythic embodiment of the fears and anxieties gripping a Russia teetering on the brink of collapse. As World War I ravaged Europe, Rasputin's influence reached terrifying proportions. With Tsar Nicholas II at the front, Alexandra leaned on Rasputin for counsel. Ministers were appointed or dismissed on his advice. Policies were shaped by a man the public considered as a charlatan. Anger grew, suspicion flourished, and paranoia spread. Nobles, priests, and ordinary citizens alike believed Rasputin had bewitched the Tsarina and was steering Russia into ruin. For them, he was no longer just a mystic. He was a monster, a demon whose power was not just spiritual but political, capable of influencing wars and nations. By December 1916, a group of nobles decided that Rasputin had to die. Prince Felix Yusupov, Grand Duke Dmitry, and right-wing politician Vladimir Hrushkevich lured him to Yusupov's palace under the guise of a party. What followed had entered legend, a story so dark and cinematic it could be mistaken for fiction. They poisoned him with cakes and wine. He seemed unaffected. They shot him. Still he moved. They beat him. He struggled to flee. Finally, they bound him, wrapped him in a carpet, and threw him in the icy waters of the Neva River. When his body was recovered, reports claimed he had water in his lungs, suggesting he had been alive when submerged. Whether fact or embellishment, the story cemented Rasputin's posthumous reputation as a man whose darkness and mystique defied death itself. Even Rasputin's violent death couldn't save the Romanovs. Barely 2 years later, the February Revolution erupted. Nicholas II abdicated, and the royal family was executed in 1918. For many contemporaries, Rasputin's presence in their lives was cursed. His story is a dark testament to how superstition, obsession, and the human desire for power can intertwine with history, leaving an empire trembling in the shadow of a single man. Madman Rasputin, the man who seemed untouchable, remains a warning. Sometimes the shadows of one individual can stretch across an entire empire.